Hello everybody and welcome to the secret history living in your aquarium. So today we are going to be talking about, as you probably saw in the title, red root floaters and a little bit about duckweed, the bane of my existence. No, not quite, but it can be frustrating. So red root floaters, Phyllanthus fluitans. I like the Latin name of that. You've probably also heard fluitans used in other aquatic plants. It's a common part of the name of like Riccia fluitans, as well as a few others, mosses and hornwort type things. So it may sound familiar, but it's a little different than most of the plants in the hobby. And here you can see I have some immersed growth going on. So I've got everything from Bacopa coming up to Ludwigia and a few other oddballs here and there, Limnophilia, things like that, peeking through just the top of it. But where you have very slow moving waters, you can get this beautiful plant known as red root floaters. Obviously, they get the name because they have red roots and they float. Weird, huh? Nobody could have come up with a more convoluted name. Come on. All right, so you can see here they've got like a nice pink color to them, but under really high light and proper fertilizing conditions, they'll actually become a deep blood red, very dark red, and the leaves above this kind of pink and this kind of pink and reddish hue on them will actually carry through into the leaves and kind of turn like a dark purpley green color. Let me try to play with the light settings here to show that off a bit, like in this leaf here. Now it tends to stay relatively small in the aquarium. You get these little teeny clusters like this. In the wild it can get larger than an inch, but you see about 1 inch is the max leaf size. And the way these plants tend to reproduce, as well as the duckweed, which is in here, and you guys have probably all seen duckweed. It's a floating plant, and the way it evolved is kind of interesting in that duckweed has been around for probably about 70 million years. Here you can see my half-beak fish coming to the surface to see what's going on. They need open water, and so I need to clear this out. So my experiment of letting the duckweed and the red root floater live unchecked is at an end, but I figure I would highlight this while it's at an end. So they grow in these little clusters, as most floating plants do. Water lettuce also same kind of thing, and they start to grow into these mats that actually tangle up with each other, and they grow from meristematic points on the plant, which means they're points at which the plant hasn't decided what that cell is going to be yet. And on most of these plants, there are about 12 points underneath here where you can see the leaves are splitting off. And with all of the plants in this family with it, they go up and then the leaves kind of flatten out and are on a perpendicular axis to the stem, but the stem tends to run more horizontal, so you kind of get a flattening effect in the plant. You can also get really beautiful little white and yellow flowers on here. If I had the lights turned up all the way and a little more nutrients in the water, you would see that. But I haven't done that just because I didn't want to waste all the fertilizers on a tank that's full of many plants. As you can see down here, the whole thing is really dense, and fish that weren't getting enough light. because it's all blocked by the red root floater. So if you think this plant's kind of cool like I do, you may want to put it in your aquarium. And really the only thing you need to do is slow down the current of water. So as you can see, I have water running redirected and running air through very slow trickles around the tank right now. I've kind of modified my hang off the back filters so they're just barely trickling, and I have them around the tank in 4 different locations. This causes minimal surface agitation and allows the red root floaters as well as the duckweed to grow prolifically. Water agitation is really the only thing you're going to do that will probably mess them up. They will grow in lower light, but not like they do in higher light. In these mid to high light conditions, this is a Fluval 3.0 planted plus light. It will, if I turn this all the way up, it will actually flower under this light, which is really nice. If I keep the red spectrum up a little bit more and the light on for, say, 12 hours a day. But you can see this light is ample to grow thick mats of this stuff. And you can see the sizable root bundle on each of these little clumps. A lot of times it'll start as one mother plant that kind of has the main root bundle, and then the other ones kind of grow along in chains like this. So it's also an excellent place for baby fish, fry, shrimp, all sorts of critters to lay their eggs and to call home. So it's great for that. It's great for outdoor ponds in the summer, or if you live in a warmer location. And here you can see my guppies are coming to the surface to check out what's going on. Everybody's like, what's that? Is that sky? What is that? Another thing to note is that the duckweed, which grows extremely fast, it eats nitrates and nitrogen and ammonia like there's no tomorrow. And just like the duckweed, the red root floaters are a great food source for certain fish and for animals like bullfrogs, ducks. Lots of omnivores will eat them. Now, there's actually been a movement both with duckweed and Riccia fluitans, as well as some of the hornworts and some of the mosses in the world, to make both fuel and food out of them. Now, with the red root floaters, they're actually finding that they're 50% protein of their actual biological material. That being said, they're at least 85% water, so you have to kind of dry it out into a mat first, and then you can make it into some sort of powder, like a meal or a flour, and then go from there. Kind of like a protein powder shake, I guess. And then same with the duckweed. And duckweed actually even has more protein and fiber in it. It's essentially half protein, half fiber, but mostly water. I know those numbers don't add up. So think of it mostly water, and what's left of the actual structure is, protein and fiber. And so it's also being looked at as an alternative food source as well as an alternative fuel source. It can be burned well as some chemical fuels that they've thought about, basically using photosynthesis and slow-moving water in dams and places like that, in reservoirs, to grow it out. Now, another factor, or I guess attribute, to consider when you have these plants is that they will block out the light of your tank below. So you need low light to mid light plants, or what you can do is you can corral off an area. You can take something that floats, airline tubing even. I've done it several times, and I've seen it done with other things like hoops and things, but people will cordon off an area and let it grow in only one area that has very little water movement. See here, you can see the water's moving, but so slow that it's just kind of slick and moving straight into the tank from there. So this stuff is also really good at preventing evaporation. This tank itself does not evaporate while the duckweed and the red root floaters are on it. So it's definitely an interesting plant in that it can do a lot of different things, but it can also block out a lot of plants in your tank. So I think it's more suited for ponds or the shallow tanks maybe. Possibly even like a paludarium. It would be great to have some fish in there, that could spawn or allow their babies to live up in the tendrils and roots of the plant. And then from there, at the bottom, you could have mosses and lower light plants, anubias, things like that. But you can see here, with a strong enough light, I'm still growing Rotala and Ludwigias and Hygrophilas, Taiwan lily, and all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, you can really, if you get a strong enough light, like a Fluval 3.0 or a Twin Star or Kessel, something like that, you can grow underneath and through it. Really, it is the frog bit, the water lettuce, water cabbage, whatever you want to call it, and bigger lily pads and things like that that will cut out light completely, as well as the duckweed. Now, the Phyllis fluitans or red root floater, you can see how it grows pretty dense, but it kind of grows in these patterns, so that if you didn't have this duckweed in with it, more light would still get through. I'm trying to see, I think over on this tank it has more, over here we can see there's more water agitation. Even that much water agitation will allow floating plants, they won't colonize as quickly. See, here's a red root floater, and it's just kind of hanging out doing its thing. There's a clump over there, and yet the tank is receiving plenty of light. So you can keep it under control. It's just kind of up to you how much you want to let it grow and get out of control. Now, for me, I'm sick of duckweed. I want to get rid of it. But as I said, all these floating plants work really well for baby minnows, anything from white cloud minnows, danios, guppies, endlers, you name it, and it works pretty well on them. So, good choice for reproductive tanks and breeder tanks. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about that I think is kind of cool about it is that it actually has evolved relatively recently. So as I said, the duckweed has evolved. It has some species of duckweed have small little flowers, but most of them are not using those flowers sexually for selection. They're using the meristematic points. And the same could be said of the red root floaters. They're not using the little flowers they have for sexual reproduction so much, but it is found that their flowers have usually a cluster of 3. There's a male, a female, or 2 males and a female, or all males. It's kind of interesting. They don't know exactly why, but they do know that there was a wide diversity in these floating plants all across the world, and that now it's dwindled down, and they've kind of, dare I say, evolution has perfected what plant styles work for these floating plants. And the duckweed, which is 70 or 80 million years old, it has its same model of using the meristematic points and very lacking root system. I mean, sometimes you can see it's pretty long for how small it is, but it's nothing near as robust as the red root floaters. And so the red root floaters grow on a scale that's just a little different, but they seem to be at the top end of the free floating sized plants up there with the water lettuce and things like that. If it gets too big, the pads get broken and the surface area seems to get ruined. Here you've got the half beak. He was just coming up. It's kind of fun to, sometimes they'll come to my hand. But in any case, I just thought I would share this with you guys, tell you a little bit about the plant, and show off what it looks like under medium light with you know, the bare minimum of nutrients. Give it more nutrients and it will eat up ammonia, nitrates, nitrites, and really keep your tank water very clean. It can help keep bacteria and algae blooms away and just keep the water balanced well. So that is another major pro to floating plants. And as I said, the only real downside is the rate at which it reproduces and the fact that it crowds out the sunlight or your lamplight for the other plants. So I hope you enjoyed checking this out. Just to give you a little behind the scenes, the way I clean these tanks is I'll take the red root floater and I will actually pick up as much as I can. I'm not going to be super specific or fragile with just picking up red root floater and not getting the duckweed on it. But after I grab it, the bulk of what I can, then I'll put water in this container. A lot of the duckweed will float off. Then I'll pour that out and do that a couple times with a couple different containers. And then I'll just use a big old net and throw away all this duckweed because it just grows too fast. But I like to keep these red root floaters. They are one of my favorite plants visually. And I think I'll be moving them to a tank that may be more Iwagumi style, so there's less plants for it to block out. But that's all I have to say about these plants. But if you have more to say, please write in the comments below, as well as if you want to share your experiences and your tanks and things like that, check out our Facebook group. And if you want to support this channel, the history, the science, the biology, the sociology, and my mad world of fishy things, you can go to Patreon. You can super chat during live streams, or you can also check out some of my artwork on t-shirts that is fish related. All right, guys, have a great day, have a great evening, morning, whatever time it is, wherever you're watching, and I hope that you take care of your critters, the people around you, and yourself, and have a wonderful day. I'll talk to you later. Bye.